All right, welcome back to another week of This Weekend Showdown. So, Yawggy, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Joining us from the beach, so you're going to be off camera this week.
Yes, yeah, enjoying some vacation time away from work.
Yep. And this is kind of the Lou Gehrig week. This is the week that all baseball kind of recognized ALS and the fight that they're doing there to eliminate ALS. So, any Lou Gehrig facts that you found kind of interesting or compelling this season?
Well, I mean, I grew up outside of Baltimore, so when Cal Ripken was getting his 21-31 streak, there was a lot of a lot of local press around Lou Gehrig and kind of impact with Cal Ripken and all that stuff. So, I mean, I know a little bit there, but nothing that's not already known, I guess.
Yeah, it was. So I wasn't. The timeline was a bit of a shock to me. I don't know that I ever knew the timeline that he's playing in April of whatever 1939,
Mm-hmm.
and that like his last game is like the end of April in 39. The speech is July 4th, 39, and he passes like 2 years later.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, it's just if that doesn't put things into perspective, and he wasn't this card in front of you, but this card's only 3 years before that, right? It'd be like if this happened to Aaron Judge, if in like 3 years, if Aaron Judge would pass from a disease, like that's like the crazy part about this and how savage ALS, is if you have no exposure to it.
Yeah, it happened quick, and yeah, it was. Yeah, he probably still had a number of years left in him if he didn't stop. Yeah.
Yeah, you hate to do any of the projections on that stuff, and obviously like his baseball career is, kind of least of your concern, but just sad thing. Glad that baseball turns into a positive. So, all right, we're gonna hop into this week. Any games you got to watch?
I clicked through some. I mean, other than the Rangers stuff, like I said, I've been getting into some West Coast stuff after the Rangers games. I turned on some stuff. So I walked a little bit of Seattle. I think I caught the end of a Angels game at some point too.
I messaged you one night because Joe Adell gave one back. So
Right, and I flipped over to that game at that point. Yeah.
yeah, so we had highlighted where he robs 3 home runs in a year. This has just got to be the weirdest defensive year for anybody. He has what I told you. I'm like, hey, he gave up a Canseco homer, which they later changed to a 4-base error, which I think is the true act of a cow. But if you get a chance to go see it, it hits it right in Adell's glove, like at about the warning track, and then it flips up over the wall. So the batter gets all 4 bases. Should have been a home run. All right. This week we're gonna go over the normal, the power play and the go in the distance for batters and hitters who've done well. You finished up week 8, so we're gonna take a look at that. So some interesting developments there. And then Derek last week posed a very interesting question that I think, wanted to elaborate on at some point. So it's a good point. His question was, because if you didn't watch last week, Derek does the NBA Showdown. He asked, how good of a simulation of baseball is this? And he was telling us how good the NBA one was. So we're going to go over how good is MLB Showdown at simulating baseball. That'll be our kind of the second half of this conversation. Last week we also covered is Pete Crow-Armstrong overrated, and you and I both stood up and pounded our fists and said, no, he's the man before he hits 4 home runs this week. No need to go check the tape on that.
No, yeah, we were 100% correct. Yep.
Nailed it. Anybody here that you're excited to see have a good week?
I mean, Jose Ramirez kind of turning the corner and maybe getting hot is kind of exciting. He's a dynamic player. The Cleveland just finished up a series in Texas, so got to see every time he played there. And I just love watching him play. He's dynamic, so that's exciting to see him maybe turn the corner there.
Yeah, if he can get to that 35 home run mark, because he's obviously going to be a speed A, right?
Right. No, he's leading the league in stolen bases still, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, so he should be like, I think this would be the first year he might get like plus 20 speed.
Well, if he's leading the league, he can be up to what, 22 maybe.
Yeah, he can be up to, which is weird because I don't think of him as being like a 22, but like the stats are kind of there.
Yeah, it's the same thing as like Josh Naylor being a speed A guy. Like you see this picture of him as this lumbering first baseman, but that's where we talked about before the difference between like stealing speed, base running speed, and how that all comes out to what actual speed is.
Yeah, and I think that's going to fit into our conversation later on here as well. That's things getting lumped together. for some reason I end up watching, like, every time I switch over to the Brewers game, Terang had an extra base hit just by your dumb luck. But
Right, you want to talk about overrated, underrated, like we did with PCA last week? Like, how many people have heard of Bryce Terang, let alone know how good he is?
if I didn't make his cards, I wouldn't know that he's this type of player.
Right. Yeah.
It's like just wrong market, like. But like outside of Showdown, I would not know that he is like definitely a top 25 guy in the league at least from the last 2 years of like actual production.
Yeah, and you talk about top 25 guys. Going back to that list is Jackson Churio, kind of young, dynamic player that is, and what he can potentially do.
Yeah, the Brewers were smacking it around. I had Chapman and I had one of the other Giants. Oh, Schmidt. I had both of them this week on my fantasy team, so they carried me. So it's exciting to see that. Also, Brandon Marsh is apparently Ted Williams. So if he hits the ball, that stat was floating around that his BABIP is for Marsh is like Ty Cobb level.
It's just a lot of miss.
Yeah, a lot of miss, but when he hits it good. So, all right. Christopher Sanchez also carrying my fantasy team. Finally gave up a run, but still pitching deep into games and giving a bunch of outs.
Yeah, I think it took him till he gave a run in the 6th inning of that game, so it still took to the 3rd time through the lineup.
Yeah, he's just been great, and he's basically, unless the wheels fall off, he's going to be a top 10 card. Alcantara is the guy who's just been all over the map for this year.
Down and everywhere in between, yeah.
Yeah, like because when he started, he was like, "Oh, this guy's gonna like ready to have an insane year," and then he blew up. But now it looks like he's back on track.
Yeah, trade him before he turns back the other way.
I'm sure Miami will do that. I am sure Miami's not going to let him get to free agency. That's not their way.
No, not at all. Yep.
Who's their old GM has a podcast that showed up on my feed, and like, David Sampson.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is. If you don't like to hear like the business side and just like the dollars and cents, like don't turn into him. He's like insufferable on everything's an asset, everything's high return, all that. But he's talks all about the Marlins trades. How about Logan Webb finally putting up some Logan Webb numbers?
Yeah, it's been slow going for him. I think he's had a decent season so far, but it's just been kind of not what we've seen is reflecting in his Showdown cards at least.
No, yeah, so the big reason we're tracking this is the 7-inning pitch guys. So the guys at the top of the league are at about 80 innings pitched right now, which is kind of what you're a little bit ahead of pace of what you would need for 200. And I think the group is maybe 10 guys, 8 guys. So hopefully, everybody stays healthy in that group and we can get more than 3 7-inning pitched in the 2026 set.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I have a question for you, kind of off topic here when it comes to inning pitches and whatnot. There's a little more scuttlebutt lately with Ohtani and his innings pitched and not being eligible for the ERA title. What are your thoughts on somebody potentially winning the Cy Young that's not even eligible to win the ERA title because of innings pitched?
It would have to be you'd have to be like a whole run lower than everyone else, right?
Right. So let's say Christopher Sanchez keeps up. Let's say Christopher Sanchez ends up at a low 2 ERA. You would still give it to him over Ohtani, right?
Yeah, I mean it would be. I would give it to Sanchez over Ohtani now just because he's pitched.
Right.
He's just had a bigger impact, right? Like obviously Ohtani's been better when he's pitched, but as we were talking about with Alcantara, if you have to go out and have a start, who knows what happens, right?
Right.
If Ohtani had twice as many starts, would he have a sub-1 ERA? I don't know.
Or had to pitch the 3rd time through the lineup. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest awards guy, right? But I would say if Ohtani for Showdown, if he doesn't qualify for the ERA title, then he wouldn't get one of those 10 custom cards. He'd be locked into something that's good, right? So you could be the Saberhagen, the 5-1 to 16 with a double, right? That tends to be that gray area for guys who've had a good year but aren't in that top 10. So if you see somebody with a card like that, that's normally where they are. Or which may happen with Ohtani, I can't see how his innings pitched. He might get the chart of a top 10 guy, but 4 innings pitched.
Right. Yeah, I think right now he's at 61 innings with 64 Dodger games played last I looked. So he'll be like right under it potentially.
Yeah, and because I think he's pitching long enough that he will probably qualify for like to have 6 innings pitched on his card. Because
Yeah, I think right now he's averaging like 5. I think you have to average 6 innings over 30 starts or something like that. But he's only not even going to get that many. He's only pitching once every 6 days, and he's averaging just about 5 innings per start right now.
Yeah, so because it's not. I use the 200 as like an analog for the 7-inning pitch, just because. But like, if somebody pitches 10 starts for 70 innings, like you're a 7-inning pitch too,
right?
Like, that works. That works just fine. So that's we'll see. Ohtani's interesting. Plus, like he's going to be a double-faced card. What we showed the 2-sided one. So the question is like, is he just naturally a double face, or do you just make both sides and the double face, and you can pick and choose?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he's super interesting. I'm going through my 2004 set, and like most of the National League teams I'm giving some sort of double. I mean, it might be like Mike Hampton, who's like a 5 on base with a couple of homers, but like giving pitchers that either like give them a speed that's not C10, give them like plus. Then there might be like a 12 or a 15 or something.
Okay.
So, I think the Cardinals, was it Jason Marquis maybe? The Cardinals had a starting pitcher they used to use as a pinch runner, like pinch ran in the World Series in an American League park. So like he's like a 5 on base, but he's a speed B as a starting pitcher, which is like, oh, that's an interesting card. Because now you can like pinch run for a catcher late in the game without using a bench player.
Yeah, that is interesting.
It's just like a free. He's not a speed A, but it's interesting. The flip pitchers have some weird like fun quirkiness to them. And the Ohtani, the 2025 Ohtani is crazy because he's 1,000 points. I don't think he's not going to be the hitter this year that he was last year.
No, I don't. Yeah, he's not going to be. What was he? A 16 to 20 home run guy right now.
He's not going to get to 55 homers. So
no.
Unless he goes on a tear, which he could do. He's capable, but he would have to go nuclear here. All right. Speaking of which, he did hit 17 home runs with his 16 to 20 card through 8 weeks here.
Yep, through 8 weeks, so 32 games. Yeah.
All right, so we're going to use this as a little bit of a update on the league, and then it's also going to set up kind of our later conversation on simulating baseball. So what was the general trend in the league here?
So I think we're getting some in the individual player basis. We're getting some regression to the mean. We don't have Schwarber and Ramirez going off as much now. We have some of the players that were kind of down under 400 OPS, kind of doing a little better. So I think we're getting a little more sandwiching.
Yep. And all these stats, so, eyeballing it here, I'm going to jump over. We're going to do the pacing for this is the 2026 pacing, because that would have been at the 40-game mark. So close, but not exactly. But just to kind of get a feel for this. The on-basing through the on-base percentage through 40 games, bunch of guys in the 400s, nobody's over 450. So we have a couple guys in the 450s, and then same thing, probably a dozen or so guys above 400 on base percentage. So pretty kind of within the range, you would say, right?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty reasonable. Especially you're going to have in a way Showdown setup, you have the higher probability for some outliers based on what results can happen. But yeah, it's pretty realistic, it seems.
Yeah, nobody has a 500 on base. Like we don't have like some random. Freddie Freeman's not putting up Barry Bonds 2004 numbers.
Yeah, I think one of the surprising things for me too is at this point in the season we're not having anybody hitting over 400 batting average either, which could be a real possibility given kind of the number of 10s you have against some weaker pitching.
Yeah, we're down in the 385s. We don't track batting average. We didn't track batting average for pacing. So ERAs, 5 guys under 1, bunch of guys in the really low 2s through 40 games. For us, 1 guy sub 2, and then a few guys in the kind of the mid 2s, I would say, is probably where people start clustering.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. There's the true aces are all in that 2.5 or lower. The less than 10 of those though, probably.
and part of this is every run scored in our league is earned.
Right. No errors. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's nothing you can do if a guy crosses home plate, like it's counting for ERA somehow. Um, but all that to say, in our league, the ERA is running slightly higher. On base percentage is running slightly higher, so maybe offense is doing a little bit better. Home runs, this is one that's probably our biggest outlier. Through 40 games, 16 home runs is the high water mark. Uh, Schwarber has 20, Ohtani has 17, and they both have 8 games to play. So maybe the biggest outlier, but I will say that it's explainable, and we'll talk about it later on. But would you say that's kind of maybe the metric that can be the most, I don't know, aggressive?
Yeah. When I was looking at through 32 games, like in 20 versus like the 2025 averages, I think it was batting average was slightly elevated. OBP was more elevated, and slugging percentage was, I think, 60 points elevated. So it got more and more when you get on the power metrics, and so that aligns with what I was seeing.
Yeah, and I'd be curious if we did this for a full 30-team league, 30-team, 20-player, right? Like if you had the Dodgers and the Red Sox and the Yankees, have to go at it. How much of this is a matter of team construction?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, so that would be curious for me. But so I would say home runs is kind of in the range, but like starting to get in the danger zone.
Yeah, I'd say that's you're starting to get when we talk about later about simulation versus arcade. You have the danger here to get into starting to get into the arcade range.
Yeah, and that's we'll touch on this, but if you're building a set like that, real elite power is not something you want to. If you're trying to hit a simulation, it's not something you want to be excessively generous with. All right, so those were the pacing. I think as a whole, our league is a reasonable simulation of the season. This is a 12-team league, so I would say this is reasonable. Any thoughts there specifically on our league before we kind of break down Showdown as a
Yeah,
simulation
I
engine?
mean, just playing through the games, it does, and then the amount of baseball. I've watched a decent amount of baseball, and watching baseball, it's like something happens in Showdown, and you're like, God, does that really happen in real life? And the next thing you know, you've got an ace giving up 7 runs in 4 innings, and you're like, okay, this can happen. And it does, it does track. And so for me playing it, it does feel like baseball. It feels like real, like you're going through a pseudo simulation of real baseball. It doesn't feel like like the old school NFL blitz, but the baseball version. So.
Yep. Quick rundown as far as the league. So 6 teams are going to make the playoffs. Claude is not quite in the clear yet, but getting close, right? If it has a good series, that puts it. I don't know that anyone's going to clinch before the final series, but I think Claude's could do it with a 4-0 or a 3-1, right? Could get. Not that it has any benefit. You're not going to sit starters or anything.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think round week 9 actually one of the matchup is Claude versus Night Fleena. So we got a 1 versus 2. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah, so everyone's rooting for a 2-2 there,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then hope they can take care of their own business. So,
Yep.
and
Yeah. One of
then
the teams that's really been struggling lately, Legion, has just like dropped lately. They're really struggling. Their offense is not able to do much lately.
yeah, and that's the teams at the bottom uh, are just struggling, and that's something around team construction. I think that we'll kind of get going into the simulation portion of it there. That'll be towards the end when we talk about the league and teams.
Yep. Yeah.
All right, so the high level question, regardless of my set, the 2000 set, the rules engine of MLB Showdown, is it a good tool? Is it a reasonable facsimile of baseball? And the most core part of the game is you have, the at bat level is 2 rolls of a 20-sided dice. We use the clutch dice, but let's just use the 20-sider for simplicity because not everyone does that. So there are 400 combinations of rolls there from those 2 dice rolls. All of them are going to get funneled into 10 outputs. That's the out, strikeout, pop up, ground ball, fly ball, walk, single, plus, double, triple, homer. Those are all the things that can happen without strategy cards, or extra rules. Everything's going to get funneled into one of those results. So is that what's the problem that come from that, Yawggy?
You don't get like we touched on earlier, you don't get errors. You don't get kind of the quirky plays. Everything's kind of straightforward when it comes to you can get strategies when it comes to getting a runner on first with nobody out, and you're just going to automatically sack bunt, because that's a guaranteed. Real life sack bunts fail a lot. You get the, speed issues when it comes to double plays, what we talked about before as well. The
Yeah,
quirky plays, you don't get a home run bouncing off of Joe Adell's head.
very sadly, there should be more of that. It happens once a decade. It absolutely should. So that's an example, right? So every team gets about 36, 37, 38 plate appearances per game, usually. Uh, so in any game, there's just shy of 80 between the two teams of plate appearances. So any result that doesn't happen every 5 games, like, that's not going to be represented. They're not even going to attempt to represent it in the core game. But these are things that, like, if you're a baseball watcher, you would not think this is, like, completely unusual, like Joe Adell giving a team a home run, a once-a-decade play. But, like, there were 3 triple plays last year. Like, if you watch a lot of baseball, you see a triple play every once in a while. Not every 5 games, but you see one. So, those are, like, things that this is not going to try to simulate any of that. So at the granularity level, that's how granular it can be at the at-bat level. So there's some error that's going to get thrown in right at the, like, atomic level of the game as far as a simulation. Any other errors you think could get thrown in from, like, the at-bat level here?
Probably these days, especially. I think they try to cover it with the innings pitched, but like pitch count, balls and strikes. A strikeout's a strikeout, a balk is a walk, a single is one pitch. So if you're trying to do anything at the pitch level, that's gone.
Yeah, so, like, Schlittler for the Yankees gave up 1 run in, like, 5 2/3 versus the Red Sox, but he struck out a ton of people on deep at bats, and he walked people. He walked a couple of folks, right? So it's like, so he wouldn't have been tired showdown wise, but, like, just the way the game played out, like, he just couldn't pitch that, especially under modern rules. Strategy cards will solve for some of this. I recommend people do some of their own strategy cards that are less powerful than the Wizards of the Coast version. And, like,
Yeah, don't do the shell shocked. Yeah.
Yeah, don't just attack people's innings pitched as a strat, or just add to the swing. Like, being able to cut a run down at home or play the infield in, like, those type of, like, baseball-ish ones, like, play around. If you've played a good bit of Showdown, you could probably take a decent stab at making your own strategy card for different situations. Like,
Yeah, that's the biggest thing I've seen too. Is like, how do you approach runner on third with less than 2 out with a ground ball? Like, if it was the 9th inning, like you're not going to let that run score. You're going to have the infield in, and that's where things with Showdown break down a little bit. That realism.
yeah, that's frustrating. Where it's just like, yeah, the rules engine just churns. So that's that's not great. That's what strategy cards would be there for, or if you have house rules for different things. Like, for me, I always like the bunting house rule to just be you roll on the pitcher's chart, pop up and strike out stands. Everything else is a successful bunt.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe you can say a 20 is a bunt single, right? Like, if you really want to. Also with strategy cards, like, I love being the, like, play before the pitch. If it's a pop out, the weird thing happens. So part of the 10 different outputs is it treats every one of those outputs as if they were the exact. So every, like, one out pop up. Who knows what that actually, like, we all think it means pop, right? Like, but it could mean any number of things, right? Like, there's nothing here for a line drive to the second baseman.
Right. Yeah. There's no line drives at all, unless you count like doubles as line drives. Yeah.
Yeah, because no one advances, I assume that's also under pop up.
Right.
Like, I would assume that that's, like, being lumped in there. But then like it treats every ground ball the same, right? And I guess you would count like for the double plays, like the low defensive rolls to be how that's accounted for.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's like that is where some error is going to come in. Is all 10 of these outcomes are going to be, as far as the game's concerned, identical. All right, you string enough at bats together, you have yourself a game of 10 completely identical results. How exciting!
Right.
Okay, so where there can be some errors from within the game engine that comes in is it treats all the circumstances as identical. We brought up this example where you have Trey Turner on first and Will Smith catching, and Will Smith actually can't throw Trey Turner out. So you should just steal every time, like 100% of the time.
Yeah, it doesn't matter game situation, nothing. It's automatically Trey Turner gets on first. He's on second.
Yeah, like even if it was prime Ricky Henderson against like unprime Scott Hatterberg, like that's still not 100%.
And then what you have on here, it says, it goes down to one person's, stats, and that's Trey Turner's speed. And it doesn't count, like, the pitcher really makes a big difference when it comes to stealing bases, and that's not accounted for at all.
Yeah, like if each pitcher had to have like a little symbol where it was like a +1 or a -1 or something, +2, like if they helped the catcher or whatnot. Like, I guess it could be done, but the game's trying to be simple and approachable.
Right, yeah, you can bog it down in rules and in special situations, but that's not what Showdown's about.
So yeah, there are a lot of instances like throughout the course of the game where you go like, oh, in baseball, like there would be a cutoff man, and that cutoff man would then throw it to the catcher, and like whether the catcher catches it at the plate makes a difference, right? As opposed to, and also all three outfielders aren't going to throw the ball together to home plate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that for me, a lot of the outfield stuff is where things get weird at the game level as well, because, outfielders are either, I mean, for the most part, are either 0, 1, or 2. So you have those 3 different ratings for the outfielders. And when you're watching baseball, there's a big disparity between a really great outfielder and the worst outfielder. So, and it's really hard to throw people out from the outfield when you just have those 3 numbers.
Yeah, well, it also treats the left fielder and the right fielder as both playing the same position at the same time.
Right, this is a corner outfielder, yeah. And there's a big difference there, yeah.
Yeah, they're both playing both corners at the exact same time. Like, I mean, I guess you have to, like, you could make people declare them, like, as a left fielder or right fielder, and then, like, have strategy cards that are, like, favorable to the hitter's pull side, I suppose.
Right, yeah, you could, yeah.
But it's, like, just getting... So there's some gameplay things that are just, like, it's simplified to make the game move and fun that are going to introduce errors to the simulation that are just going to be like, okay, well, like, this isn't going to be accurate.
Right, and you're going to get to the point, too, if you start introducing that kind of stuff, where you're turning something people want to do in 20 to 30 minutes into an hour and a half.
Yeah, you could easily... Like, I've played a 4-game series in under an hour with someone who's never played before. And if you have to sit there and do math, or, like, people have to, like, and when you're playing with a new player, like, whether you should go from second to home against outfield takes, like, the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can tell them, like, having to do, like, the calculus. It's not calculus, it's high school algebra. But also, if you're playing with a new player, just tell them what the odds are in a percentage.
Right, yep.
You're an established player, you know what the odds are. Just tell them, like, I have a 35% chance of throwing you out.
Yep. Like, you need to roll a 13 here, so... yeah, exactly.
However you want to do it. Just... It'll speed it up a lot more than, like, making the game about, like, how well they remember how to do arithmetic.
Yeah. And that's the good thing about the MLB Showdown, the app that what's-his-face made, that when you're doing that, it actually pops up on the screen next to the runner's name, like the number that he's going to need to score, or what the defense needs to get him out. So it's really quick decision like that.
Yep. So, all right. So the game is played by cards. I know these are the insights you tune in here for. So part of the problem with the cards is, well, there's only one of them. Like, it's not like an aggregate card that is going to change and live and breathe. And a lot of times it's just one card per season. The most prime example of this is on the right is Roberto Alomar, representing his 1999 season. So this is a Hall of Famer. This is his best season in his prime. And on the left, we have Terry Schumpert, who, if you did not play the original MLB Showdown, you have no idea who this is, but he had a very good 300 plate appearances in 1999. And then he didn't finish the season out. His card is better than Hall of Famer Roberto Alomar's best card. Even though he played about half as much. But prorated, he was slightly better. In your thoughts, like, I think I've tipped my hand. What are your thoughts on things like this?
Not a fan, I guess is the easiest way to put it. It just doesn't, for me, it just doesn't make sense. Nobody goes to a game like this in order to play with Terry Schumpert. I don't think it's going to draw people into the game. They want to play with Roberto Armalo. They want to play with Ricky Henderson, those kind of players, you know?
The Schumpert family, all love and respect.
Yes, absolutely.
If you're tuned in here, love the card. Played with it a ton.
Oh yeah, even the 2001 actually isn't too shabby of a card either. So
he was good. This little window of time, but he was not the Roberto Alomar third in the MVP voting on the best offense of the last 40 years, right? Like,
right.
So yeah, the problem is if you have a single season, there's all sorts of issues. If you ever have to make your own set, hey, somebody doesn't play a full season, how do I represent that? You had asked about Ohtani, right? Just Ohtani's not going to pitch as much as what people would consider a full-time pitcher, at least as far as like awards or whatever. So what kind of cards should they get? The original set kind of aired on the side of like making some interesting prorated cards, especially in the pennant runs, because the pennant runs were I think different than how a lot of people do sets now.
Yeah, those are projection based too. Yeah.
Yeah, they're projection, but yeah, that's were people who didn't get a card in the first on the first batch of 9, so there was some interest, and they had to sell it, right? Like this had commercial pressures that anyone making a set now doesn't have. So how do you factor all that in? How do you make it a reasonable representation of a person's year? There are all sorts of things. Also, Terry Schumpert wasn't as helpful to the Rockies as Roberto Alomar was to the Indians, now Guardians, right? Like, because he didn't play as much. He's got a third of the WAR down there, right? So it's so that's it, but it's like, but in the Showdown thing, like, Terry Schumpert is more valuable because even though that. So we've all been through this. There are errors that come through at the card level. So if Terry Schumpert plays a full season for the Rockies, he will likely put up better numbers than Alomar, even though that's not what happened in real life. Little source error. So there's a source error.
Yep.
As I rant and rave here, I'm gonna get work. All right, even more. So now we've talked about the 1999 Rockies have now just got a Hall of Famer in his prime in Terry Schumpert that they shouldn't. What happened? So you make a team, right? So any set. So for my sets, we'll just say there's 12. I use 12 players for each team. For my 2025 set that's linked out there, people can get it for free. So the Dodgers, for instance, hit 200. The whole team hit 244 home runs. Great. Are those all going to make it into the cards? No. 13 of them were not even on rostered players. So they were hit by players who weren't in the 12 batters who made it. So, but Alex Call was traded and he hit 3 home runs for who was he with, the Nationals?
Mm-hmm.
He has 3 home runs for the Nationals. He comes over, and because my set is made off of where you end your year, Alex Call's 3 home runs come over. Right, so the Dodgers are going to lose 10 home runs. And there's a thought, like, for the most part, it probably all just evens out. But I just took a couple of examples where weird stuff happened. The Twins sold everything that wasn't nailed down last year. They hit 191 home runs. 12 of them not for unrostered players. And then Bader, Castro, Correa, and France all take their home runs with them to other teams. There's no way that math is right. And the charted home run should be way lower.
Right.
I gotta get someone to check my math here. So the Twins end up with like 150 of their 191 home runs. Or how about this? The Mariners, slightly less home runs than the Dodgers, but let's just say they're at about the same, right? In real home runs hit for the Mariners. And they had a pretty good bit of unrostered players hit home run. They had 22, right? That's actually a pretty good number. But they get Suarez, who brings in 36. He brings in Pete Alonso before he ever even takes a swing for the Mariners. And then Naylor and Tellez cancel out, right? So now they end up with more home runs than charted than the Dodgers even hit, let alone charted. All this to say, all this is like you're going to be moving stats around. This is one stat that stuff gets moved around. If you're trying to make teams that make sense, like it's just not going to happen. You got to kind of get the aura of it, and you kind of push people up here and there to make the team reasonable.
Right, and what you're trying to point out here is for the team level, especially in the case of like the Mariners, if you're trying to do a 30-team, showdown season with your 2025 set, like having Suarez on the Mariners the entire year is going to make it a lot different than what 2025 actually was.
Yeah, and so when you start trying to give little boosts to help the team out, you kind of need to know, well, the Mariners got theirs because they get the whole year of Suarez. But somebody like the Twins, it's like, oh, maybe the Twins need some help. Otherwise, they're just going to look like they looked at the end of the year, which was completely inept, which is not what they were. Matt, if you're listening to this, hope they're doing better. So yeah, if you start thinking of it at the team level, those unrostered home runs, they kind of find their way into other players. So that's where, like, when Schwarber hits 20, I'm not as concerned. Right, because it's like, well, the days he took off, if somebody had hit a home run, that kind of counts as Schwarber's home run.
Right, yeah, you don't have those reserve spots, bench spots, yeah.
Yeah, so you have some of them, does it account for all of it? Probably not, but I think that's where some of it gets fixed.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It's a good way to bring it out, is since these guys don't ever get rest. I mean, you do have some leagues where people are required to take rest, but not nearly as much as what MLB has, and if you count those stats into what these players perform at, then it helps absorb some of it.
Yeah, and I also don't, like, if you're trying to have, like, accurate teams, I don't know if you would, like, go find, like, how many games did this guy play, and he roughly has to, like, sit out roughly that number of games. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, the only a lot of talk I've heard about that at the team level that people try to simulate realism is requiring a backup catcher, and then having your starting catcher can only play 3 out of every 4 games or something like that. So
yeah, the catcher one makes a little bit of sense, and then it's like, okay, could you be strategic with, like, your DH spots and whatnot? So, all right. Okay, and then the league level. You get a bunch of teams together, whether they're whole teams or drafted teams. Where does the error come in on the simulation there?
What we've seen in our league right now is having a team that's got three legitimate aces on it, and then like their 5 through 9 hitters aren't even starting baseball players. Is the biggest thing.
Yeah, you just so one, everyone has an equal, like, salary cap. Yeah, so, like, that's it. And it's like,
right, that's off, yeah.
Yeah, so that's off, right? And then, like what you said, like, team construction is, you people starting, like, minor league teams or starting non-starters, because you have the equal salary cap. Also, anybody can get any player, depending on how your league is structured, right?
Right, you could theoretically have a 12-team league where the 12 teams are exactly the same players.
Yep. Yeah, so for our league, it's like everybody was a free agent, right? So, it's like, that's not realistic. So nobody gets stuck behind anybody, right? Where it's like, well, you have the, you have two good first basemen. Like, if you're the Rays, basically it's Aranda and Diaz, and, like, any other good, like, they could have a great third first baseman. He's just not going to see the light of day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that doesn't happen in our league. And then all the managerial decisions make things interesting there. All that to say is, like, it's a pretty good simulation of baseball, but here are all the ways that the errors come in. If you make your own sets, or you're doing your league and you're, like, a little off, like, take it easy on yourself.
Yeah, it's still fun, and people can still have a good time with it, and you can, like, for me, it's really interesting to see the different way people are using the team construction with the, the salary cap across the board. It's creative, and it's not just one person putting together their version of what a showdown team should look like.
So when do you intervene? Whether it's at the league level, let's start at the league level because it's probably the most like. When is a situation where you go like, hey, I'm going to intervene here, like I'm going to make it so this is more realistic.
Probably, I mean, you got to keep an eye on. I mean, if you're in the middle of a draft, you got to keep a close eye on the salary cap, and making sure people are understanding what the rules are. There is the biggest thing. I mean, making sure roster construction rules are clear as well.
Yeah, well, no, I would say so the reliever tiredness rule is a big one that we've run into, right?
Yes, yeah. You got to make sure you have the relievers that can cover the innings.
Well, and also you don't want to have a reliever who's pitching, like 9 innings a series.
Right. Yeah.
So it's like, oh, this is like because we looked at that and we were like, we want this to be close to a simulation. This is abusable by the normal game engine. We're gonna stop that. How about like limiting steal attempts? Because like you're abusing that a little bit, right? Like I think Turner is on, like.
Yeah, I kind of feel bad about it a little bit, but I mean, it's within the rules and it's kind of how my team's constructed. But yeah, I think having some kind of limit to steal attempts makes sense because if you're going against teams that their catcher's a +6 and your entire team is speed 20, you're going to steal almost every time you're on first, which just isn't realistic to baseball.
Absolutely. So yeah, if you have something in your league that's like this isn't realistic, like probably like one, if everyone agrees, like just fix it in the middle. But like otherwise, next time, like come up with a decent rule, talk to people, and make a rule that you think will fix it, and try again and see how it measures out.
Yeah, that's the fun thing is you can always just experiment and see what works, see what doesn't, and adjust.
Yep. I will say if you are making sets, the thing we found at the league level is that the ground balls are a little heavy on the pitchers. The speeds are slightly slower on the batters, maybe 1 or 2 per batter league wide, and the defense, especially middle infield defense, is a little generous. So that is something where it's like, hey, maybe you find ways to pull back using Photoshop or something. Like when you're building your set, if you want a better simulation, start with those features.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, big recommendation on that.
All right. Well, it's been great. Love talking about this stuff. I could go on all day, but I know you're at the beach and you want to enjoy yourself.
Back to my margarita, yeah.
You could have been drinking that the whole time. All right, this has been another week of This Week in Showdown.